Thank you. Okay, given today's date, I'm gonna ask that we start off with the pledge. I know we don't have a flag in the room, but I hope everybody appreciates it. And if we can just stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Nice.
All right, so call to order and welcome. Let's start with public comment. Do we have any public comment on the line? I don't see any public comment in the room. No. Is Dylan on the line?
No.
Okay, because he said he's been having audio problems when he zooms in, so let's watch. All right, board member comments. Who'd like to start? I'm sure we have some.
I'll let others start and then I can join us.
Okay,
Might just be you.
Might just be me. Great. I just wanted to say that we had a great presentation Tuesday night from the community builders, and thanks to everybody who came and participated in the last 6 months of DST work or community work around community builders and Brown Ranch, and you know what pathway looks like moving forward after the no vote. So council's moving, well, what should I say? I believe council is moving forward with a phase 2 with community builders, but we haven't allocated funding, but we do have funding from Longing, Colorado left to spend on it, on more resources and more support with that, important community project. So love to hear any feedback or questions that you all have regarding, what that next phase might look like. I think they're still scoping it out, so it's a little bit to be determined, but hopefully we'll see some conceptual designs and get a lot of community feedback, hopefully, on what the design might look like and where the support might go. But again, this is all needing to be scoped out still, and will take another month or two probably to get a full scope out. So again, if you have any questions or feedback, I'd love to hear it.
Can I ask a question?
yes, please.
I did come on Tuesday, I had to leave at 8 and y'all were still talking, so thank
Like
you for
3+
your service.
hours, yeah.
That was a long one. My question was regarding the governance. That was very much a hot topic while I was still in the room, and I was curious if and where that landed. I think at one point I thought Councilman Buccino referred to the housing authority as a private company landowner, and I just feel like, that's not my understanding of the IGA. I just feel like the ability to actually collaborate in the manner in which the housing authority was originally intended to feels like a real missing area. And I know y'all do too, because it came up. So I was just curious where that piece ended up at on Tuesday, if and where, if you have thoughts about how we're going to approach that.
I would say thank you. That's a really important part of this next phase, and it's still, a little bit be determined. I think we need to all talk about it. Jason brought up some great points that we all need to sit down, maybe both of our boards, and kind of talk about it. I would love for this at our last housing authority board meeting to have a couple people from the housing authority join our next subcommittee and kind of outline some next steps based on that first phase and report. We haven't scheduled that yet, but I think just more collaboration. And Tom Leeson, city manager, brought up, his thoughts on that as well, that I think it might have been in response to Buccino's comments, but it might have been later on too, that we all need to start thinking about, as a community, this land as community land, and how we want to see partnership of that moving forward, rather than it being all in the city's authority or all in the housing authority's authority. Clearly you all are the landowners, and we can't do this in silos. We need to figure out exactly how we can support each other moving forward. I wouldn't say we have defined terms on that. Clark Anderson, the community builders representative, he spoke on, there's various ways that other communities have looked at this, because other communities have struggled in similar ways with governance. So he was saying that, we could potentially form like a new IGA with new representatives that is specifically for this project, or I'm not sure, but he just said that there's other examples out there that they can help us look at and they can support us in finding kind of the next iteration of governance and partnership as it relates to Ground Ranch or that project. Any other
Still to be determined.
thoughts you want to add?
I would echo everything Dakota says. I would add to that, I think that from a governance, from a leadership perspective, which has come up around this issue, I don't want to get too deep into it, but I think we need to address it. And I think the way to address it is to have several council members, like the two of us, several city people, Tom and maybe another, several board members from here, possibly the county if they're interested in being involved in that discussion about moving forward on the Brown Ranch governance / leadership way of making it the most effective and productive way to move that forward in the community. So I just think, and I talked a little bit with Tom about this, of having a small group just get together and discuss it. And as a starting point to that, so.
Was the thinking that phase 2 would be supportive of that governance piece, that was something that the council wanted to include in the scope for community builders, or is that you didn't really get there Tuesday?
Can you rephrase or say that first part of your?
I mean, what I overheard was some like confusion about what exactly is in phase 2. Clark kind of came in with his general recommendations and, there was some confusion about, well, are we just like planning a plan? Or are we actually going to tackle some of these key components? And it sounded like they were amenable to like council saying, this is what we want phase 2 to include. And so I'm curious if you all could, if the plane was landed in terms of the governance piece is really critical and it can't wait 6 more months to
We
get
don't
through
want the
like a
governance.
phase
I
2.
think the governance piece is a separate piece, no matter how we move forward. Phase 2, we gave them some direction to move forward, come back to us with a little different plan that they outlined. But I think the governance leadership piece is something we need to tackle, and irrespective of what the process is out of that.
Almost like it doesn't need to wait for
Right.
the next scope of work and all of that to start talking about
Yeah.
it, getting in a room, and just seeing what your all's needs are, what the city thinks, our needs could be, what we think the community's needs could be. I think at one point Clark mentioned, this next governance piece might include members of the DST as well. Like, it's just kind of unknown. So figuring out what you all think and what we think could be supported with the community builders, but I don't think it necessarily needs to wait on them.
I mean, I think we would like to do this as soon as possible, quite frankly.
And that was also highlighted of like, Clark kind of went back and said, I'm sorry that, it looks like the governance piece is after this second phase. He underlined how important that is to this process and feedback that was heard by the DST. So almost moving it up as like the #1 priority before we kind of dive into conceptual, designs and all that. It seems like we really need to hone in on what the leadership will look like and how we support each other.
Catherine, you had your hand up. Yeah, yes, I sat through the entire meeting and I really want to, thank the DST people for the hours, tremendous number of hours they put in. Yeah, I guess I'm less optimistic than Dakota was after that meeting, but I guess what I just like to recommend is I think a couple things. I thought it was really, I appreciate Dakota's inclusiveness of asking Jason what he felt, but I didn't really think it was fair to Jason. This board hasn't seen the DSD presentation. We haven't had a discussion about it. And we're a board, we're a team. And I
think that's some of the reasons that the community's bashing Jason unjustifiably is because we don't have his back. We're not talking as a board and giving policy recommendations to our staff. I mean, there is information coming out from community builders on like Monday evening and Tuesday morning. I mean, that final slide, when did you guys get that? I didn't see it on the Rainbow till Tuesday. That's just not enough time to study documentation. I mean, it was a clear, I mean, as Jess just asked, there is, a clear difference of opinion from two very smart council people on what phase 2 was. So I thought it was very unclear, and I guess they're coming back to scope. On a side note, I 100% agreed with Councilor Michael Bacino, which is not always that common. When he said, but I was like, I was getting texts from people saying, "Go, Michael," because his comment of saying that the city and the housing authority need to work hand in hand, arm in arm, to get together and work out the technicalities of the next step. I mean, my opinion is that I recognize that capacity problems, this and that, but we've got free land, we've got $14 million a year. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's going to be challenging to build anything but high density infill. I mean, I hope there's infill we could build like a little butcher knife deal. But to me, I think the community wants a better plan. And I agree with Councilor Bacino that we need to start working on it. But that's just my opinion. I really think that if the city council wants our board's opinion, we need to take a look at the presentation and have a board discussion.
What do
We
you
haven't had that.
recommend in terms of trying to have that discussion, maybe at our
stand up and say what housing authority thinks. I think we need to have Jason's back and have a robust discussion. So we have a strong voice, and at least we've had a chance as a group to talk about it.
I'd love to also hear the board's thoughts on having a few of your members sit with the housing subcommittee to talk next steps as well. Love to have board support to do that.
I think that's great, but I think every person on this board needs a voice as to the next steps of the largest asset that this board owns.
Catherine will put it on next meeting's agenda, if that's all right.
Would it be okay if, we're able to schedule a housing subcommittee in the meantime to have a couple members?
Yes, but I agree with Catherine. We need, the whole board has an opportunity to weigh in.
Before that subcommittee meeting?
No,
Okay.
we can have a subcommittee meeting, but then it needs to be brought back to this board so that we can give input. Is that right? We'll put it on the October meeting.
Yeah, October is gonna be focused on our budget, so, what's that?
Probably the lottery. And the
And the lottery. So, and this sort of matches with some of the comments that I made at city council, which is ground range is important and we should put it on the agenda. We should talk about it. We should also be diligent that it doesn't occupy 100% of the oxygen. Because there are real things, real tangible, more near-term things that we need to be focused on. And so it doesn't mean that ground range isn't important, but it is a mid to long-term solution. And the nature of the problem we're solving requires action now and long into the future, so.
Would it make more sense to have the board review the report in the meantime and just email some comments? And then once there is a scope out from community builders, the board can talk about that and provide feedback on what you feel like could be amendments to the scope of work. What would be the most
I think
meaningful use of time?
What
for
we
the
could do
board?
is send out the report to everybody else. We may have already done.
I thought
that.
we did.
Yeah, I think Elliot actually did. Thank you, Elliot.
Not the latest report, the last slide.
And so take a look at that and amass your comments. So that we can have a productive and hopefully focused conversation at the next board meeting. I don't expect, past history will tell me that community builders is not going to get you a scope in 2 weeks. And so this will take some time, and I think that's absolutely okay.
And Jason, I think that what you guys sent out wasn't complete because that last slide came so late.
I mean, I just say it. It's great that we have the report. I read the report. It speaks very tangentially and about governance. It's not a topic that it just shows up as one in the report. It's different from the presentation.
Yeah, I would just like to be really transparent here, because part of what's in there, and it wasn't well stated or followed up, was the fact of the whole issue around the housing authority and the trust issue in the community and around the leadership piece. I'm certainly not drawing any kind of conclusion from any of that, except it was felt that we, meaning the housing authority and the city and the council and potentially the county, needed to at least meet and discuss that in terms of how to move forward on Brown Ranch that ensures we have the trust in the community, whatever that process is moving forward. Irrespective of what community builders comes back with in terms of a process, if you will, for phase two. So some of us just thought it was appropriate that, and again, I talked to Tom about this after the meeting, was that, you know, to get together and just to talk about that and to make sure that the housing authority and the city council, you know, are together and aligned moving forward. Because we need to be, to your point about what Michael said.
Now, I thought Michael's statement was inspiring and
You know, so that was the whole thing, was to, you know, if you remember, you know, at the DST meeting, the July meeting, I think, who was there at the July? Yes. You know, Elliot, you were there. And they were talking about you know, the trust issue and all of that. Community builders came out and said, well, put that issue aside. What can we do at Brown Ranch if we put that issue aside and we don't, you know, just ignore that issue, put it aside, we'll address it later. Well, it wasn't addressed by community builders. And so I just think it would be nice if we proactively addressed it and were aligned as a whole group around that moving forward. And I don't see any reason to wait on that. I mean, it's almost like we could do that as quickly as we want to.
I agree strongly
So do
that
I.
we need to do that.
I think, I mean, Jason, I appreciate your comments in the meeting and then now, you know, iterating that like there are a lot of things that the housing authority is doing and, you know, Brown Ranch is a long-term solution and we have immediate need and that is accurate. But I also think that the community perception is very fixated on Brown Ranch. And like, certainly, you know, we've talked about from a comms perspective, like needing to diversify where the attention is going, but Brown Ranch and the housing authority are inextricably linked to each other in a way that the community perception of our leadership on Brown Ranch matters enormously, I think, to our capacity to be successful in anything else. They are not disconnected from each other. And so, you know, I feel like, you know, to Steve's point, I think that it's critically important that we get on the same page quickly about what leadership looks like. And the housing authority is perceived as having a very active and engaged role and being willing to have these conversations now and not saying, well, you know, this is long-term, so we're going to kick the can down the road. I worry that we're not going to walk down that road very far if we don't do right by Brown Ranch, just because that has been such a community focal area. So I think it needs to be a both and. Like, yes, we need to, you know, obviously Cottonwoods is critically important. There's a lot of stuff happening in the present. And also the Brown Ranch piece is very germane to the housing authority's ability to be successful long-term. I think that we have to do both of those things well.
And I agree with Jess, because I think just my opinion, I appreciate the effort and it sounds like it was a lovely bonding experience for the DST committee. But just my experience in elections, we hold these elections, people, it happens. Generally what happens, particularly what I've seen in Steamboat, to now use the school board as an example, you lose an election, like when they wanted to move the high school twice, everyone's fired up about it. The expectation is school board come back with something different and better. And they did, and people liked it. I think unfortunately that this process has done, you know, this community, this year-long, however long process, community builders, is you have people, you have like little wound after the election, your little owie, everyone's upset because of whatever happened, and it heals. I think this long process was just every DST meeting, they just kept ripping the scab off and amplifying it. I don't think we've had the opportunity, like Jess said, for the housing authority to take the lead and say, yes, you know, the master plan was not what the community wanted. Let's come back with a better plan, like the opposition asked us. And have it smaller, more development oriented, more specific, and give the community a chance to look at the specifics of that. But I think Kathy, if we're getting into this conversation, that's not on the agenda, this is probably.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And so we will look at some time either for October, or if we need a special meeting, we will do that.
Thank you, Kathy.
Okay. All right, let's move along to consent agenda. I hope everyone's reviewed the minutes, the financial statements and the check register. Are there any questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Lou. Looking
Second.
for a second. That was Jess. A second by Jess. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Hi.
Thank you, Leah.
Hi, Leah.
Hi.
Hola.
Hola.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. All right, let's go to staff reports. I'm gonna swing it over to Jason.
All right. Yeah, we've got a lot on our agenda, so I just want to keep this relatively brief. I guess the first thing that I want to say is a thank you to everyone that stepped up this summer and carried the water while I was gone. Big thanks to Elliot specifically for taking the helm and being a steady leader for the whole team. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It wasn't just me.
Oh, I know.
It was the other staff members too, so.
For sure, and I want to acknowledge that as well, is that the staff stepped up. Many of you board members put in hours of extra work. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
It was a team effort.
We're glad you're back. This day with a full house.
Thank you. And just one other update. I have kind of put out a feelers to the council candidates, just giving them the opportunity to meet with me, talk about the housing authority, what it is that we do, how we work with the city. Scheduled a couple of those. Already met with a couple of folks. So that offer's on the table if you end up talking to somebody who's running for council. My door is open to get together and chat. I'm also doing the same thing with basically all of the rest of the, county commissioners, the council members, going to try to get on some calendars to meet with all of those folks. Overdue to meet with you.
Send out like a formal invite to all these guys.
I haven't yet, but I will.
You need to like,
Yeah.
even, and like, I would like, if you'd like more information, very professional and.
Absolutely. Yeah. John's already got that queued up for me.
You might also want to extend an invite to the school board people also, since they're looking at housing.
Lots of meetings on your calendar.
Leave time for 16 meetings.
40 hours in a week, you have 40 meetings. All right, and that's the only updates that I wanted to provide. If you have any questions about what's in there in the actual staff report, primarily Elliot's report, please let me know or let him know. And otherwise, I'd like to get into the kind of meat of our agenda.
I have a quick question on that, Jason. I want to thank Elliot for well done on that very professional but strong letter you sent to OPG. It warms my soul when we finally see action. The fact they're finally working on that door so they can honor their commitment for that rec room is, one of the happiest day of my life.
Yeah.
So, but I also want to mention a point Mark brought up, I think a couple meetings ago, is I wonder if we can be a bit more proactive with foremen on Sunlight Crossing. Mark had that good point that there's a gazillion cars parked on the side streets. I don't want to sound like Ned Stark in Game of Thrones, but winter is coming. They're not gonna be able to park there. They're not gonna get rid of their cars when winter comes. It's only gonna be harder. So I think we need to give Gorman a call and see what the plan is.
So I think that's a double fold. It's not all sunlight.
Okay.
Some of those also I've seen, it's kind of like Frogger around 6:30 running over to base camp, but we can have a conversation with them as well, because they lost parking when they built the townhomes.
Okay.
So it's a mix of that whole multifamily section of 40 that's using sunlight.
As long as it's not people there. So there was an engagement with Underparked and, I think Jason said, earlier in another meeting, we need to own the fact that even though we're not managing the buildings, we've got an interest in it. And also, I was wondering if you could just let me find out what the vacancy rate is over there. I know Base Camp,
Sunlight,
yeah, because Base Camp had those 6 units that are now being subsidized by the city that were vacant. So I'm just wondering if we're starting to finally see a vacancy rate increasing, so hopefully rates can start sliding down a bit.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just have one question on the deputy report, regarding, on page 29, you mentioned community engagement events with organizations like UC Health, YVHA, and Steamboat Mountain School. I was just curious, like, how you're doing outreach for those? Are you outreaching to nonprofits in general? Are they able to mass purchase units at Cottonwood? And if somebody wants to follow up with me after that, I just know of certain organizations that are really interested in that idea, if that's being offered at Cottonwood.
Okay, we're gonna talk about Cottonwood separately, so
Right,
does
it's
that
been
have to do
mentioned
in
the
Elliot's
deputy report, so-
report?
Happy to,
Okay.
I'm happy to both bring you up to speed on what we've done, how we've been doing it. And I'd love to hear if there's other organizations that you think we should be talking to.
Great, that would be great, thank you.
All right, Elliot, is there anything else in your report that you'd like to highlight?
no, I think the big thing is just the follow-up with OPG. That was a kind of a lengthy discussion we had last month. So, in there, I just kind of recap, we had a meeting with Aaron Welch, their VP of Asset Management, after our board meeting last month. And, the general takeaway was that she was just as shocked with the condition of the properties as what we had heard, and the feedback we had received from tenants and just folks in the general public. So they've put together like a kind of an outline of how they want to address all the issues. And just walking around Anglers 400 the last couple of weeks, things are being addressed. The garage bear issue, I saw that's been repaired. The access control is being fixed. There's several units that have HVAC issues. Those are also being worked on. So I've been getting kind of a weekly email from Jenna, who is Aaron's works under Aaron as the assistant asset manager. And she was actually up here in Steamboat yesterday, meeting with the city about a noxious weed complaint over there. And she's been great, just kind of giving me a weekly email with updates on what they're doing and things that are kind of getting checked off the list. So I feel like the communication's been improved. I feel like they are kind of working through addressing these items. I know they're still struggling with staffing. And so they're trying to make up with that with vendors and contract labor. So I think that's the biggest thing to highlight out of my report.
Thank you. All right. Anything else on the staff report? Then we'll move into Cottonwoods. Jason, back to you.
All right. All right, the purpose of today's meeting is it's like probably like 7 different intersecting items surrounding Cottonwoods. So let me pull up some information because I'm gonna hopefully that'll help you guys walk through it. So I sent to you guys a presentation that we've prepared that is ultimately going to be a city council presentation. It really doubles as a presentation to anybody who we want to kind of get up to speed on Cottonwoods, and then also the sources and uses and cash flow for the project. So I'm going to walk through really those those items. We'll get it up on the screen in just a second.
It's showing, it's just not on this one.
Yeah.
Kathy, are we not talking about the hillside, the Forest Service? Because that was in the packet also.
That's,
It's later on in the agenda.
Okay, just out of order, I got confused. Like, somehow when I'm sliding down, we're skipping something.
All right, so as it relates to Cottonwoods, I want to talk about just like the current situation, the market, the information that we're receiving from the buyers that Lala and her team have done a really good job of bringing in. I want to talk about the financials. I want to talk about the pricing and the impact of additional subsidies, particularly coming in from the city. And then what our sort of like recommendation is for that subsidy side of things as we move forward towards the city council. Just a quick note on like timing. There had been some discussion about us going to the September 16th city council meeting to kind of finalize the an investment in Cottonwoods. That is not happening up in September. It's being moved to the October 14th meeting. So we have some time to kind of craft our recommendations here. And ultimately by the 21st of October, we'll know what the sort of total investment from the city might look like. All right. So this is information from the housing market demand study. Just looking at the kind of missing middle group that we're targeting. It's a big group. It represents nearly 40% of our demand for housing. And this is just a very macro view. The fact that we have hundreds of households in this group, and many of them are looking for housing, either in rental or ownership. What we also know about this group is that current market rate product is way out of reach. Even at the highest end, we're still looking at gaps of several hundreds of thousands of dollars. Folks to be able to get into the median household, median house price in County. So we've got a missing middle group. This is who we're targeting. Product that they can afford is simply not there. And so we've gone out and met with a lot of those prospective buyers. Araceli and Lala have been holding court at the boathouse and meeting with a lot of different folks. We've got 240 people who've done the pre-screening. And we've learned a lot from who they are, what their buying power looks like, their incomes are, where they work, types of units that they're looking for. So this is just a snapshot of where we are right now. But I think the important thing to know is that it's heavily skewed towards 1 and 2 person households. So that group of 1 and 2 person households are the, not surprisingly so, the most difficult to find housing, having the least amount of resources. And so we're excited that we have that many people, but it's also the information about their incomes is tailoring the way in which we look at how much subsidy needs to go into the project. This is just a breakdown based on AMI and household size of where people are, but you can see that generally speaking, we have a lot of folks in the 80, 90, 100% AMI range. Less people in the higher AMI range. Now that doesn't mean that those people don't exist. If you go back to the macro information, there's a lot of people in the 120 to 150% AMI range. They may not have communicated with us yet because that's not a population that we generally serve. So all of this is just to talk a little bit about the market that we're trying to target. The market that we see right now, the best indication of that market is that it's skewing lower on the AMI scale. So that gives us a little bit of insight, helps us with the decisions moving forward.
Jason, with the inflated AMIs, because AMIs are, what was that number you had, like our wages are actually 60% of AMIs, it's not surprising.
It's not. No, and you can talk about this academically all day long, but it's conceivable that those people at 90% AMI were 100% AMI a couple of years ago.
Exactly.
And so that's an important corollary to what's going on.
Just a question on the skewing. What is our feeling about the impact of not having specific pricing associated with that and advertising those specific prices in terms of who has expressed interest?
I think I understand where you're going there.
That was a strong,
Yeah.
I think it's a mix. I think half of the people that have started this process are understanding that it's just, they want to know if they qualify for the deed restriction. That's kind of how we phrased this phasing of Cottonwood since we don't have pricing. And a lot of the people that have submitted have been YVHA followers. They either live in one of our properties, they've lived in one of our properties, are kind of looking. More so, I think we'll hit the higher tier still when sales prices are published.
Okay, so then the skewing is based on the data we have, but that may not be an accurate representation of who is interested.
Correct. We've had some of our presentations, we did two with you. And I had someone who was like, I just thought that this was going to be too low income for me to qualify. So that was kind of a light bulb and a positive moment to say, okay, I need to get more involved in this. And I think we're going to see a lot more of that once prices are published.
And I think Blue's right. We need to make sure that we have time, the community has time to see those pricing units. And so has time, so it's fair for people that are waiting to see what the units are priced out to get into.
And we will talk about how we get to that point
How do you see?
during this exciting conclusion of this conversation. So what I want to talk a little bit about is the pro forma that you guys saw. We've got a project budget that all told at this point is $55.8 million. That is inclusive of the original budget plus 6.4 million in change orders. The pro forma that you saw looks a lot like this. That's $55.8 million is the total. Of that, there are some amount of costs that are associated with phase two. Think of this as improvements that we had to make to unlock phase one that have a benefit to phase two. Overall site grading, retaining walls, utilities, access, all of that sort of stuff has a direct monetary benefit to making phase two developable. But we had to pay for them somehow, so we needed $55.8 million. We're able to source that $55.8 million, and you can see that in your so this is the sources of capital here at the top. The biggest change is the addition, and it is an addition of $2.6 million to the construction loan from Alpine Bank. And a potential loan that the Housing Authority can get. I can provide a little bit more detail on that later. That will help us basically close the funding gap that we currently have. One of the important things, and you'll notice this in the presentation, there's these little stars and it says deal point. Keep these in mind as we're going through this. These are items that are going to be critical to ultimately an update to a partnership agreement that we have with Lone Tree Trust. 55.8 is going to be the price that we want them to guarantee. And I'll talk about how that works in a second, but that's one of the numbers that's going to get locked into this.
know you're gonna get there.
I will get there. So we lock in place the cost at 55.8 million. We then need to get down to 41.1 million, which is the maximum price we can sell units for. The way in which we do that is we shift about $9 million of costs to phase two. That's taking on the $4 million infrastructure loan. It's taking out this additional loan that I'll talk a little bit more about, and foregoing our land contribution. That gets us to 41.1 million. Again, another deal point. That number will be fixed. So for the purpose of the cash flow waterfall, which we'll go over next, 41.1 million is the net is the proceeds from sales. Now, that does not have to come 100% from the actual sale of units, because we're talking to the city about bringing in additional STR. So for every dollar that the city brings in, we sell a unit for $1 less. Bring in 5 million, we sell every unit for $58,000 less. 10 million, we sell every unit for more or less. And so the point about fixing the cost and fixing the sales creates the environment where every dollar coming in from the city STR funds lowers prices, dollar for dollar. And we'll get into exactly how much additional STR is the right amount of STR. Ultimately, that's a decision by council. We're going to talk a little bit about that later on in this conversation, but I wanted to just pause here, make sure everybody understands how we get up to $55.8 million and how we get down to 41.1 million.
That 9 million is gonna be paid back in effect in phase two.
Correct.
And the loan cost is, and we figured that, is that coming later, like our annual cost to service that loan?
We'll get to that in a minute.
This is the slide that you show council that's supposed to say none of this STR money is going to developer costs. It's all going to buy down the cost of the unit for the buyers.
Correct. Yep.
And that developer fee is actually quite low, is what we've heard before. Is that they're making less money.
You're jumping ahead, Captain, jumping ahead. This is why I shouldn't send you the presentation beforehand. All right, there are no questions. Moving on. So again, we're talking about this 41.1 million. That's the amount of revenue that comes into the partnership from sales. The things that get paid out of that are first and foremost, and this is based on the cash flow waterfall in the partnership, closing costs and commissions. 1% to YVHA, 1% to the agency, and any other kind of ancillary closing costs. After that, we have interest on our construction loan and repayment of that construction loan. Moving forward, after that is payment of developer fee. That's 51% to Lone Tree, 49% to YVHA. After that is return of equity. And after that is potential profit. Now, this is really important. By us fixing the $41.1 million sales and fixing and our partners guaranteeing the $55.8 million, if costs do actually go up, profit will go down, and that is their risk. If they find some savings, bring this project in, land the plane with a little extra money in their pocket, their profit could even go up. And that's the reward for doing a really good job. And so that's what's left at the end of the project.
That comes to developer profit.
What's that?
Developer gets profit. That's split with us.
So as another deal point that we need to talk about, YVHA in the current operating agreement would be getting paid for our land contribution, $2-ish million. We're foregoing that. We were in the current operating agreement, it says that we'll get 20% of profits, so 400,000 in there. Discussing foregoing that. So that our partners will guarantee the cost. And that we don't have to play this game of, oh my goodness, the cost went up again. What are we gonna do? Not our problem. So those are the like major deal points that I want you guys to be aware of, that we are gonna need to be inserting into a new partnership agreement with Plant Tree. And this is how it all flows from a dollars and cents standpoint.
Dakota has a question.
When it comes to the commission, 1% to the housing authority, can you provide like an admin cost associated with that 1%, or where is that coming from? Because I know the community might be looking at every nickel and dime the housing authority is getting out of this project and having questions.
Alyssa, and you wanna address that? You and Araceli have been working for almost 2 years.
Yes, so well, not for free, but that does cover some of our costs. So when we send out the RFP and within the deed restriction, we've outlined a 2% transaction fee. When we did the RFP for our partner on the transaction side of it, it was agreed upon in the selection with the agency, 1% to them, 1% to us.
Whereas market is in the neighborhood of 5 to 6.
So it's basically just to cover admin costs. It's not anything above. RSLE and I aren't going to be getting paid out per transaction. It's just solely for admin.
Yeah, it is not a profit center.
Right, I just think that's important to note, like with every time it's like a percentage goes to the housing authority, it's like, why is that happening? Oh, admin costs, or, you know.
Yeah.
So Dakota, if we weren't doing it ourselves, we'd be paying the group, because the seller pays the cost to sell
Totally.
Pays the cost for the realtors. So if we weren't paying that 1% to ourselves, we'd be paying 5% to someone else. I mean, we're just doing it for a cheaper cost than they would charge us.
Absolutely, and that's another great point, like it's actually at a benefit to the buyer or seller, it's a lower cost to them.
If we weren't doing it, that 1 million would be probably what, 5 million.
And that's the thought process moving forward around this, and keeping these deed restrictions within the housing authority is to keep it at that 2%. So regardless, it's at the end, at the transaction time, there's more money in the buyer and seller's pocket.
Yeah, that's a great point to share.
Okay, any other questions for Jason at this point?
Yes, the 6.4 million in cost overruns, or whatever you want to call those.
Sure.
How confident are we that that is a real accurate forecast versus they could easily come in at 3 million and pocket another 3 million? Because I would question giving them all of the profit above any cost reductions they come in with, because I'm not so sure. How accurate do we really feel that 6.4 million is?
That's a real number.
They've already
And-
spent that.
Yeah, that's already additional costs that are hanging out there.
So you feel very confident that that 2.1 million probably will not be exceeded.
It will probably go down.
It will probably go down.
Yeah, I want, this deal is anything but done. We've been working on this hard for 3.5 months. And it's close. And the place that they're at now is that the contractor is finally come around over the last month to realizing that he's gonna absorb some of the overruns. But it's not done. We've been waiting for roughly a week to get the final documentation from the developer and the contractor to try and put this to bed. But it's none of that's guaranteed. The total cost, I get I wish that we could have the total cost up there. The total cost for the project is more than that. But there, again, it's part of a negotiation, but it's not a done deal. And until we get the rest of this documentation and we go through it and agree to it, then it will be done. So I think it's close, but it's not there.
If I had to,
So some of the pieces you talked about, they're pieces of it, but it's those numbers some of those numbers could change.
if I had to guess, what the developer is going to do is he's gonna squeeze the contractor. And he may make, the developer make more money, but the contractor is gonna make less money on some of those change orders. That's how it works.
Will that impact the quality of the final touches of the?
No, it should not, it should not impact the quality. This is
Shouldn't,
strictly an
but-
issue of money.
Right, but are they gonna cheap out on some critical pieces or some finishing
No.
touches?
No.
No, all that's already been bought out and contracted, so that's, I mean, there's no like value engineering, I would say, like granite or cabinets or door hardware or anything like that at this point. That's all locked in.
Mark, you're an experienced developer. Is this standard that all of a sudden you have these cost overruns and in the normal world, do they just raise the sales price, or in the free market world, do they just raise the sales prices or?
Yeah, you see it, you don't want to see it, you don't want to see, I haven't run the percentage on it yet, but the contractor is over budget in the range of 12%, which is a lot.
That's higher than normal?
We've added, the housing authority, has added at our request, or had a couple of things come up that, were unavoidable. And so maybe added, I think less than 1%. So you have to deal with it, and it's trying to be dealt with in the case of the contractor had been issuing change orders and the developer had been just signing them. And there was, some of it was okay, if you will, but just recently they started asking for some that involved some soils issues, and I took a really aggressive stance on it, and they finally have realized that they have a liability, and they're accepting that. And they're gonna absorb, we don't know what the number is exactly, but I'm pretty confident they're absorbing something in the range of, the low 1 million.
And they being Houseman.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, just so we put this in all in context, the reason the deal is structured the way it is and any other additional monies come out of the developer's profit is so that they have incentive to finish it correctly. And B, we are not subject to any of these additional costs. We've already given up a lot of things, a lot of our money in this.
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to clarify on that, because there have been inaccurate community comments that either housing authority or the developer was making a lot of money on this. And I mean, from my perspective, it looks like that is definitely not the case. So the developer's making less than they would in a free market. Yeah.
Dramatically.
Dramatically.
And they probably are not gonna, they're probably not gonna make the 2.1 that they want. And there's, without belaboring it, you are happy that you haven't participated in some of these conversations.
I'm very happy. And thank you.
I mean, just the $2.1 million represents, that's on $55 million. It's a very low percentage cost. No developer would take a job like this.
And that's what I just wanted to make clear. And I think that needs to be clear at council too, is this is a a very skinny profit. For both groups. I mean, we're giving up a lot. We're donating our money. We're getting that small developer fee. I mean, this is an investment in the community that we're happy to make. And I don't know how happy our partner is, but it's much less than they would have gotten in the free market. And they spent 2 years on this.
I think this project really outlines, and hopefully the community can understand this, the value the housing authority has in these types of partnerships to really hold the developer accountable to affordable housing. Like Cole was telling me, this would easily they would just pressure it to be market rate or beyond. But the housing authority has done such an amazing job at keeping this affordable and bringing more affordability than anyone I think could have expected to this project, so.
Housing Authority and the city partnership, we're gonna hopefully have on this.
We'll talk about that, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it's certainly a group effort to get to where we are. Our partners have put in a lot of work. They've put out personal guarantees to make this happen. So I don't want this to sound like we're ungrateful for the work that they've done. But we hire them for a reason, and it's to take on risk, and we're ready for them to hold that wholly now. And I believe that we're capable of doing that. George actually wrote an incredibly good operating agreement that puts us in a very strong position to have the decision to forego our land contribution as an example. We could choose to take it, but we're in a position where we can say, you know what? We recognize the benefit that it provides to the community. We can put that in.
Thanks, buddy.
It's our choice.
Because you're doing best by the community, and the community hopefully will see that.
Jason, do you feel like the terms of this deal, which I realize is not yet final, as you are presenting it to us, is palatable enough to Lone Tree that there's a good likelihood that they're gonna say yes to this?
Yes.
I didn't hear that question.
Is Lone Tree gonna agree?
Is this Lone Tree gonna agree to what we're talking about?
They're currently headed that direction, but we need to.
Yeah.
As of yesterday, the answer is yes.
Good answer, guys.
It's like everyone cross your fingers.
But like, what's the alternative, which I think is important for everybody to understand.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative is not good for Lone Tree.
Or the housing authority.
Potentially the housing authority, but specifically Lone Tree. And so this is an outcome that allows everyone to land the plane and get off on the ground safely.
Doesn't mean they like the flight.
It doesn't mean that they didn't puke in their neighbor's lab. So it's, to overplay that analogy. Anyhow, I want you guys to just be aware of the way in which this is being negotiated. Now, to that point, we have regularly had weekly partnership calls with Lone Tree. Big group meetings, got all the housing authority staff in, it's got all the Lone Tree people. Got some board members jumping in from time to time. What we've decided to do is have a smaller group. So that's Cole and myself.
Is that a comment?
Zaka.
Sorry.
And two people from the Lone Tree team to kind of like bring this all home. Then we'll bring in, get the sort of like deal points together, work with our attorneys to get it paper ready for everybody to sign. This is the reason why we're doing this, is to get you guys all up to speed on kind of the direction that this is headed, and the work that Cole and I will be doing on behalf of the organization to get this to a place where, we're working with George. We've got an amendment to our partnership agreement that memorializes some of these changes. Clear?
I think it's more than just you and Cole.
For sure.
There's been a number of us involved, and to get down to this final one, that part of this is gonna be cost, and as you know, they put the cost, and we put the cost many times here when the cost is actually here. And so that's the final negotiation, is have they recognized and are they gonna cover all of those items? They've come a long, long way. So it's close, but it's not done.
Yeah, and I do want to just let everybody know, we are relying heavily on Mark and his keen eye to be verifying all of these details and costs. He's put in a ton of time, so thank you.
Mark.
I mean, before we leave this slide, in response to Dakota's question, do you want to explain the developer fee and the return on equity? Since we do get, the YVHA gets some of that.
Yeah, so developer fee is essentially getting paid for doing the work of the developer, meaning the time that all the staff and various people on the team have put in. So we get 49% of that 1.7 million, they get 51% of it.
Like an admin cost.
To some degree, I consider it admin. The return of equity is literally the cash that we've all put into the deal.
We put money in.
We've put money into them.
To highlight,
Yep.
again, like the reason I ask or say these things is because our community is watching the city and the housing authority very closely right now. We want to really start building more trust with the community, the city included, and just having as much transparency as possible moving forward. Like, this is all the areas the housing authority is seeing money, and here's why and how it's related to the costs you've put in, the time.
I think that comparable, Dakota, is, let's just say the city had contracted with a developer and said, hey, we need some for sale condos, go out and do it. They're not gonna do it for free. You have to cover their overhead. So basically what you've done is, by doing this with the housing authority and our development partner, has done it at a significantly, dramatically reduced cost to the community.
Which is great, and that's another great point to highlight to those that are paying close attention and wondering where this money is coming and going.
I mean, if you had just gone to the free market and said, please build this, that developer fee and the profit would be a much higher number.
Right, and maybe like I was telling Cole, maybe it'd be good to show an example of the potential profit this would create in a normal development. So the community can see that 2 million is nothing compared to what is typical out of a project like this.
Oh, for sure. And we could actually show that pretty easily, because what you're gonna see is that your $41.1 million gross proceeds from sales will be 59 or 60 million. And then you take all this stuff out of there and you see the profit is 20 million.
Yeah, so like something
And-
like that would be
Yeah.
helpful, maybe not like inflated, you know, like an average that's like grounded in some data and just like
Yeah.
not too inflated, but just a point of reference, how great of a deal the community is getting here.
And
Yeah.
Dakota, when Mark says change orders requested by the housing authority, that means there are things he identified to make sure that the finished product is quality. That we went in and said, listen, we are not settling for this quality, we want it here.
Yeah.
All right, Leah's got a question or a comment.
I just had a comment based on what Dakota was saying. I think it's really important when we're communicating these things to the community about, what the housing authority is making on these deals. The housing authority is a not-for-profit organization. So we're making this money to cover overheads and operating costs. And when we do that, it means that we have to get less funding from, mill levy potentially going forward, or from the city and the county. So we want to show that we are making some amounts of money on all of these developments, because that's how we start creating our own self-sufficiency and stability as an organization moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that if you look at us as an enterprise fund, like you have in the city, that's how it works.
Where's the equity going?
So the equity is going back into the housing authority's fund balance for us to invest in the next project.
What will the fund balance be at that point?
That's a Sandy question.
Yeah, we get 1.8 back. We currently are sitting on like 4, so increased about 5.5 million, 6 million. With stuff in the pipeline that's gonna require capital.
It's relatively small compared to the numbers you guys usually work with, but it's,
Do you have a reserve, I mean, kind of a target for that?
A portion of it is another agenda item. But yeah, these are funds that have been created over the life of the mill levy. And our small contributions from our rental units and partnerships and ownerships in those.
But do you try to maintain it at a certain level or no?
I mean, in a perfect world, we'd maintain it at 0 because that means we're deploying the capital into projects. So no, we don't have a reserve target of that money.
So that money is not accelerating over time.
No, it's been built by the mill levy that's coming to sunset.
I would add that our fund balance
Yeah,
is,
there's also-
Said another way, need that money.
I'm sorry, Leah and Steve were both speaking. Oh, Sandy.
Sandy.
sorry, I was just gonna add that we do keep a minimum fund balance of 6 to 12 months of operating expenses.
But the goal has always been to build it up so we can have enough for the next development. We've got 2 coming down the pike, and then plus, don't forget, we've got Cottonwood Phase 2
yes.
that we're gonna need this money for, and that's what's, paying the loan balance back, that'll build to get that going, so we've got a lot in the pipeline in the next 12 months.
Do you wanna go into executive session or at this point?
There's just a couple more slides and then we can
okay.
go into the,
Okay.
talk about this in executive session. All right, so just giving you guys a quick overview of sort of where we've come. This is the pricing that we can achieve. This is essentially the $41.1 million pricing that we see for all of these different units and the associated monthly payment. We had a very productive conversation in June with the city to add 5 million to that. That gets the prices down to here. Our average AMI target is 125% AMI. We have 7 units that meet the Prop 123 expectation of the state. And so at that meeting in June, some council members expressed interest in seeing, well, what would a few more million do for you? We said, well, we'd be happy to show you what that might look like. And so
All of council supported that.
all of council supported that. And we've had a meeting with the subcommittee, which is made up of our esteemed council members who are sitting here with us today and some city staff members to talk about what is that right number. So we don't know exactly, but here's what we believe is likely the sweet spot. Is an additional $5 million, so $10 million all day coming from STRs to buy down prices. So instead of the project still receives 41.1 million in revenue, 31.1 million of that comes from the actual sale of units. That gets us to an average of about 113% AMI as far as affordability is concerned, and you can see what those prices look like. And those are the types of prices that we can get really excited about.
And I have to say too, Jason, I have to say, I think it's critical that the city partners with us on this. I think one of the things we learned in the previous inclusionary zoning ordinance the city had is that the original sale of the houses were just not low enough to have even a small appreciation. And I think with the housing market softening, which it is, I think these numbers will probably work. But now what does Paoli say, our partner, our real estate partner on this?
Says the prices need to go down.
Even from this?
He likes this, but what the market has been sitting longer, things are sitting longer. You're seeing more of like the 1-bedroom units come in kind of a competitive price range because the HOA fees are going up so much that people can't afford them. So that's where I think is also driving some of those prices down, is just the HOA costs and the overall affordability. But he thinks as much subsidy as we can get is going to be
For
beneficial.
maintenance, and refresh my memory, maybe you haven't, the next slide, maybe I'm jumping ahead again, do you have the slide of how many units at each price? I mean, are the majority of the units gonna be at the lower end versus higher?
We have that information. We did not.
I have 86 units and 86 pretty much different prices.
Yeah, but my recollection was the majority of them were at the higher end price, is that not correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so really, we're probably looking at a higher number at the 444s than the 274s. And are we asking for like a reduction? When we ask that $5 million, are we gonna then ask more math to what gets lowered by how percentage?
So in a public session, we're a little hesitant to show you every single price of every single unit. We do have an executive session scheduled where we could pull up that spreadsheet and show you.
Okay.
Literally, here's the prices for all the one bet. If we get this $10 million investment from the city, here's the type of prices that we can look at. The key that we've been focusing on is a healthy margin of what the affordable sort of income would be needed and how far that is away from the income qualification cap. So we have a lot of units. They're in the like kind of 110 to 125 range, but have 140% AMI qualification cap, which means we have a broad market of people that can afford that unit. And so a lot of our approach here was not simply to move the price down and then move the income cap right down to it, is to keep that income cap high relative to the price so that we expand. By reducing the price, we're actually expanding our market, expanding the amount of people that can afford that unit. And so we haven't gotten all the way to the 42 units of the Prop 123 commitment that the city's looking for. If we wanted to do that, it would take an additional $3 million to get down to that level. 13 all day.
The important thing that GAP's doing, it also gives opportunity for that and then the subsequent sales and resales.
Correct.
And just a friendly suggestion, I think when we present to the city, I think we should have Paoli there, have Chris there. Since he is the realtor, you know, he's got that expertise in the community. So I think his voice would be powerful.
You and him can stand there arm in arm and say, more subsidy now.
But seriously, I mean, if you guys could be at the table presenting, I think having his free market expertise saying, we need this investment partnership from the city to make this investment work would be very important.
For sure.
Yeah, Chris and I were best friends.
Yep.
Me, Michael, Chris.
I mean, what-
Is the low subsidized price for the 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom correct? The
Yeah.
3-bedroom low end is less than the 2-bedroom?
Uh-huh.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, it's based on AMI.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, what can't be lost on this slide is market rate price for a 2-bedroom is $678,000. It may be going down a little bit, but that's $400,000 more than what the subsidized price is, at least in this scenario. And $230,000 more for the high end.
Yep.
That's a pretty big subsidy.
But I think it's a necessary subsidy. And if you look at other comparables that the ad hoc committee is looking at subsidizing, this is like such a better deal. Are we locked in on the HOA fees? How are these being incorporated into this math? Elliot?
So we have a fixed HOA fee of $5,000 a month. And then we've gotten a budget from Steamboat Asset Management, which kind of breaks out utilities, landscaping, snow removal, maintenance. Reserves as part of it as well. And so I've been working through that. That started at about $1,000 a month. And I've gotten it down to about $543 a month. And so, which is kind of more in line with what we were initially projecting with some of these prices when you go through the formula and looking at insurance and HOA fees and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty close to kind of where it's gonna be. There's a few things that need to be shaken out, such as like utility costs. That's a little bit of an unknown. And also just kind of how we want to set this up for like general cleaning, you know, housekeeping, common areas, that type of stuff. But I'm feeling pretty good about it.
What we're finding is,
It is locked in at that number.
Well, I mean, that's what we've gotten it down to right now. There's probably a little bit more tweaking to that.
Is that a total or is that in addition to the 500 fix?
Well, that's what we modeled
Okay,
to
that's
get
what
to
you
some of these
modeled, I get it.
prices, yeah.
what we're seeing is that our prices are relatively similar to the rest of the market, and that's not surprising because there's nothing that we can do to subsidize the cost of maintenance. Like, we've built a brand new building and that's great, but the cost to remove snow is still the same. Doesn't matter the type of product that you have, and the cost for landscaping and interior cleaning and all of that. Like, we've tried to find efficiencies as much as we can, but it's going to be relatively in line with its comparable market priced properties. The nice thing is that you aren't dealing with a 35 or 40-year-old product that is that has a special assessment looming. It's brand new, it's under warranty for the first year. Those are, to some degree, there's some ways to kind of discuss with buyers about how that, even though that may be the same as whatever comparable unit, it is still a little bit different because it's a brand new product.
And it's included in that monthly payment, right?
What's that? The capital improvements?
The HOA.
Yes, the HOA is included in those monthly payments, yes.
Yeah, and the other item that's important is insurance.
Yeah.
And that's the big number in the whole HOA budget, so.
When do you think that will be identified?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about Steamboat Asset Management is they have several comparable properties to Cottonwoods in their portfolio. And they've been kind of shopping that around through some of the carriers that they work with. So it's an estimate at this point, but as we get closer to CO, we'll be able to hone in on
that. The other thing that we're just a tweak to this document that you will see when we ultimately go to city councils, we have really good information on what comparable rents are in these spaces. And so we'll be able to say, if you may be a renter paying $2,300 a month for a one bedroom unit. Here's your kind of monthly payment range to move into home ownership. Maybe a 1-for-1 trade as far as actual housing costs.
Yeah.
So that is what our recommendation is. At least at the moment, we're going to be working with the ad hoc committee to fine tune that. They wanted to see something on the low end of that, so maybe $3 million added to the original 5, so 8 all day, or even something on the higher end of that, 13 all day. So we're going to be working on somewhere in that range and ultimately bringing that to the to council. And so what this will look like from a council decision standpoint is that we will have a hearing on the 14th of October. That will be kind of 2 items. One will be basically a resolution amending the grant agreement, moving the $5 million from phase 2 to phase 1. Will also be a supplemental budget amendment with a discussion about how much extra money they want to potentially include in that grant agreement. So that may be 3, it may be 2, it may be 1, it may be 5, it may be 8. We're working on wherever that kind of lands. Hopefully we don't go in there going, tell us what you think. We're not gonna we're gonna run an auction in front of them. But we are hopefully with the guidance of the city gonna come there with a solid recommendation. Hopefully that has the backing of the subcommittee and the staff and can be a really robust conversation. It will be followed up 1 week later with the second reading of that supplemental budget amendment that will finalize the amount of money.
So Jason, what's the, I'm sure you've done the math, I was gonna do it, but I said I'd ask you since I know Law's done it. What's the unit subsidy for each number you're asking for 10 million, 13 million, 5 million? Am I looking at it?
Yeah, it's 220,000.
Yeah,
At the
the,
bottom.
So you're looking at 220,000 subsidy for these units, which is,
Does that include the total of 10 million?
That's total of 10 million plus
okay.
our subsidy plus the state subsidy.
So really, so that's what I'm saying, that 220 is not, that's not just a city subsidy.
It's not the same. So.
What is, because I think the city needs to look at it from their investment.
Yeah, I mean-
What is the city subsidy? I mean, this, for the city subsidy to get for sale condos in a resort town, that's pretty dang cheap. What is it, Jason?
116.
$116,000 subsidy for the 10 million. And at the same time, the ad hoc committee is looking at a 400 grand subsidy for some rentals to another entity. I mean, this is a friggin' screaming deal to the city.
Absolutely. I think it's also, you know, when we talked at the subcommittee level, just hearing, because the council really wants to meet that Prop 123 goal. And this doesn't quite get us there. So to know what else will help us get us there, that the housing authority is working on, and knowing that there's other things out there that might help us get there as well.
So Jace, when you present on that subsidy, I would break it out and say the city subsidy is 116. And then for the $13 million, the city subsidy is what, 130 or something? I'm just guessing. Because that is an incredible return on investment of the short-term rental tax funds.
They're big numbers, but you're right. When you break it down like that, it certainly helps illuminate that. So we're fortunate that we have some time.
I was just gonna say, it also just shows our ability to leverage different types of subsidy to stack affordability.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm a taxpayer in Steamboat Springs, and if you're saying that the city's gonna get, you know, create units, I guess, for 113,000 a month versus 400,000 for a rental, I know which way I'm hoping my city leaders are going.
All right, any other questions? Right, and we will go ahead and move into executive session because there's some things that we'd like to talk to you that really we're not quite ready for public discussion. So do I have a motion?
To do that, I just want to know. I've gotten, as you all know, some criticism for serving on the housing authority and having conflicts of interest for doing that, even though it's within our IGA and makes perfect sense. But I have been recusing myself from these executive sessions in order to ensure that there's no perception of conflict of interest. Do you think that there's information regarding any other grant requests, SCR funding, that will be discussed in this executive session that won't be provided to council at some point in the near future?
No, there's nothing related to the grant request.
Are you guys gonna go back into session after this to discuss the, okay, do you want me to split? What do you want me to do? I can just like blah, 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 or I can actually walk out of it.
You probably need to step out.
Yeah, we'll just have you step out. We can shoot you a text when we get back in. Thank you, Sarah.
All right, so let me read the disclosure and we'll entertain a motion. An executive session is proposed to be held in compliance with CRS 2466-402-4E, determining positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation, developing strategy for negotiation, and instructing negotiators. The specific discussion is Mid-Valley Partnership. Do I have a motion to go into executive session?
Motion moved. Second.
Sorry, I've got Lou and Jess. All right, any discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're in executive session. Thank you. Did you need a motion? Okay. All right, so now the last item is our update on the
You need to read that little statement.
pardon?
You need to read that statement.
Make any decisions.
Exactly.
Oh,
We didn't make any decision.
we didn't make it,
Just read
those who participated, if there was anyone here who thinks that we made any decisions, please, raise your objection now. Okay, thank you. All right, let's go into Hilltop. Should I share the screen? Emily, you want to take it?
I will.
She's got it.
I just need to share my screen. So this is purely as an update, and I'm gonna move quickly so that we can end right at 2 o'clock. But the reason we wanted to bring this to the board now is because we can anticipate having quite a few actions that we'll be bringing to the board for you to consider in upcoming meetings. So it's been a long time since this full group has talked about this project and just wanted to quickly bring you up to speed. So hopefully I can do that in just a few minutes. Okay, so just a quick reminder about the way that this project works. So this land is on Hilltop Drive. It's right across Hilltop from Fox Creek condominiums. And the land is owned by the Forest Service. It's an administrative site owned by the Forest Service that they've determined they're not going to use for any administrative purposes. So there's this whole federal process that they've been undergoing for years that gives the city or the county the right of first refusal to develop the land. The city took that first right of refusal. They created an MOU with YVHA to work on development services for the site. And so the city, the Forest Service, and YVHA have been working for several years through this federal process to get a land lease. We're getting really close on the land lease. So that's one of the documents that you can expect in the next couple of weeks or months. What will happen is that the lease is going to go before City Council. If City Council chooses to sign the land lease, there will also be an assignment document that would assign the lease directly to an entity wholly owned by YVHA. So that's where we come in. Some of the other documents that we're working on are our pre-development agreement with Servitas, which is the development partner that the development team identified via an RFP process last summer. So those are some of the other documents that you can expect in the coming weeks. I can skip over all of this stuff, but in an ideal world, we're actually hoping that we might have a lease in October of 2025. So I've been working with city staff on hopefully getting that at least just slotted in on upcoming council agendas because it'll take 2 readings. So just an overview on what we're looking at. We're looking at a 84 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units in 13 buildings. So we're working hard to sort of work with the site, which has some topography. It's situated in an existing neighborhood. So it's a different concept than we've seen with other housing authority projects in recent years, where we're doing 13 buildings. It's less efficient cost-wise, but it's a way to have the kind of smaller buildings that will blend in better with the existing neighborhood. This development would serve a broad range of incomes. So anywhere from 40% of area median income up to 140%. And that range is it is sort of based on a lot of things. It's our understanding of where the needs are in the market. It's also based on feedback that we got from both the Forest Service and the city, because these developments are going to have units that are dedicated to both of those partners and employers in the community. So there will be seasonal workers from the Forest Service in there in more dorm style housing where multiple people would be in a unit together. But then also the full-time 1-year leases for other community members.
Yeah, quick question. With the seasonal, did we increase our parking to accommodate that we're gonna have like 4 people driving the car or?
We've only done like
So-
concept design, so we know that this can fit on the site, but we haven't gotten to exact parking counts yet.
Don't reduce that playground size for more.
The color of the doors. Green.
I just wanna make sure that, except I think we talked about this earlier, that there's a good outdoor space, healthy space for people that live there without having to leave the property. And I just wanna really emphasize, we need that health equity component.
Yes, I totally agree.
150 parking spaces
150,
shown.
so there's 150 parking spaces for 86 units if a lot of 4 people. I just don't wanna be.
We don't know the parking.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Too detailed for where we're at.
Oh, sorry.
So right now, again, this is just based on concepts, but we're thinking it's around a project cost of about 41.1 million. Just under $500,000 per unit. That's what we're seeing. So in terms of documents, so we're also working closely with Servitas. This is going to be a totally new arrangement than we've done with other developer partners, where they will be our fee developer. So it's new and different, and what it means is that YVHA is the owner of the asset. We will, if we build these buildings, we'll actually own them. We'll have control in how they're managed and operated and maintained. So that's great in terms of our ability to have a lot more influence on these developments. It also comes with more risk. So that's what we're working through with this kind of different arrangement. I am at 2 o'clock, so I'm gonna stop, but just so you all know, the things that you can sort of expect in coming months are going to be a land lease, the assignment to the land lease, a pre-development agreement with Servitas, and then we are also working on a request for STR funds to support the pre-development work that would kick off this winter.
Has that been submitted to the ad hoc?
It hasn't been submitted yet. Elizabeth has been working on it this week. I'm hoping that we'll have it in a place where we can submit it next week. So we're trying to do all of these processes in parallel.
So are we anticipating for the SDR funds that we'll submit a request for pre-development planning, whatever, and then also come back to subsidize for cost?
Correct.
So
3 million is the initial request? Is
initial.
That's our initial guess. That's for the pre-development work.
that not typically on the developer?
So that's the difference, is that in our other partnerships, our developer has taken all of the pre-development expense at risk. That's now on the community, YVHA, and with the approval of the city.
But this truly is a city housing authority partnership. This is city Forest Service Housing Authority partnership.
Yes.
Remind me of the benefit of that change.
The benefit is control. So YVHA owns the asset. We would also be able to hire and fire the property manager.
And we,
Enter into master leases, stuff like that.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think one of the big advantages here is a change in the relationship between us and the developer. On the Lone Tree project, that's a for-profit developer. These people get a fee. They essentially act as program managers for us. So I would not call them developers. They're program managers. They deal with all of the details of developing the property.
Do we have the capacity to manage that, or do we need more capacity?
So that's actually specifically why we bring them in. Another way that you could think of it is an extension of YVHA staff. They are boosting our development capacity and expertise, but they don't have a financial stake in the project in the way that all of our other development partners do.
So if there's overruns in this project, it's likely on us.
Those are the things that we are working out in our pre-development.
This is an
about their
increased
risk.
risk profile.
Yeah.
So you're saying like a lot of the detailed work Mark did on Cottonwoods when he came in, that's looking at the actual detailed numbers and stuff, Servitas would do that for us?
Yes. In this case, shovel in the ground.
Spring 2027.
Completion.
18 months later.
Thank you.
18 to 20.
I mean,
At least 18 months.
that's the best case scenario would be, we actually did site work in the fall of 2026, but I think we're
Yeah.
just broadcasting spring 2027.
And we will actually start hopefully some geotech work.
So fall 28, possibly.
Yes.
Yeah,
So for our pipeline, we'll have cottonwoods in 2026, but probably nothing vertical in 2027. And then these in 2020, well, Bear River could be 2027.
Correct.
yes.
Excellent, thank you.
So the bulk of SDR funds would be requested probably 2026
Yeah,
Well-
or 7.
Yep.
Because the concept that we're looking at now is the around $3 million request for pre-development now. We're structuring the project so that we can go to the state with a Prop 123 request through their equity program and trying to put that request in before that money disappears. Because it's still appropriated now, and they've broadcast that there's gonna be around in right now and then again in January 2026. That's what we're targeting. But if we're not successful, then yes, we would likely be going back for another STR request.
Just another thought, Emily, on this, these are gonna be rentals, so with we know the AMI numbers are inflated, so consequently the rental numbers under those AMI numbers are higher. Can we consider just look at having a discounted, some sort of discount rate for the rents?
Yes, that's what we structured initially, and I'm having a subsequent conversation with our developer partners later this week to make sure that those rents are
Discounted.
right sized.
You are always the best. Thank you, Emily.
Thanks, Catherine.
So this is a good news story.
It is a good news
It
story.
is.
Good news story.
It's
It's
been,
good to end on a good news story, Emily.
yeah. It's been touch and go so many times with this one, but I will say that all of our partners have been awesome. Federal government, city, Servitas.
Thank you, Emily.
All right, any other questions?
What's the anticipation of having this agreement? I've read this agreement and it needs a significant amount of restructuring.
It does, I
Yes.
agree. So we had a conversation about some of the kind of key outstanding business terms where staff felt like we were still far away with Servitas on. I would love to connect with you one-on-one if there's some specific things that you're concerned about business term wise. In terms of the actual structure of the document, we agree, we don't like it. So once we're in agreement on the business terms, George is gonna work with the Servitas attorney to restructure the document, to make it flow better, to take out the terms that are more related to development, not pre-development, and address hopefully some of the things that you flagged. So let's just talk separately, if that's okay, because I think that happened at a development team meeting when you were.
And somebody's looking at this now.
Yes,
Who's looking at it?
George.
George is?
Yeah. But we want to work on the business terms first with Servitas to make sure that we're in agreement, so that then when George and the Servitas attorney are rewriting the document, they're not doing negotiating as much as just like making the document flow
Yeah.
better. So,
Yeah, it needs a lot of help, but,
great.
Well, there's no scope.
pardon me?
There's no
Yeah,
scope.
hey, Mark, this is George.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what version you looked at, but maybe 6 months ago, when we were talking to Servitas previously about this, before it kind of went on hold, I had tore that PDA apart, but then they didn't respond to that. So you might not be looking at what I'm proposing document.
I've looked at the one that was sent to me that was represented as the one that you're working on, but it sounds like maybe that's not it. So if you would, could you send me the one that you guys are working on now?
We don't really have one right now.
Okay.
But I'll send you what I had previously from like 6 months ago, which is going to be what I intend to be the base document that we're going to go through following the business terms being settled between the negotiating teams.
All right,
I mean, just to let you know, we've had conversations about scope items, milestones, and project controls on this project.
All right, any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, you said.
I have a motion by Jess and a second by Lou. Any further discussion on the motion? If not, I'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, Leah.
Bye.
Adios.